Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com Daily Brief. Woohoo, party! We were getting down to good old Billy Idol before we got the show up, but from what I understand, the audio sounded like poop, so I'm sorry, everybody, but was having a little fun doing a little 80s retrospective there. But anyway, good morning, everybody, and from what I understand, the audio is a little bit better, so let's do this thing. Um, as always, of course, we've got the mayor driving the bus, doing just such an awesome job. Just put such a big smile on my face when he's like, "Ding dong, Brian. Good morning." So, how you doing this morning, Alex?
Hey Brian, I'm actually doing pretty good. How are you?
Excellent, thanks. And special treat. We weren't expecting him this morning, but he decided to pop in. We've got the mayor with us. Thomas is here today. How you doing today, Thomas?
What's going on? I'm good.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we'll get a really good, nice overview of the market here from various different perspectives to really help you get centered. Um, just a quick update. If I understand correctly, Julian got the level 2 program up and running, so we'll be having class on Friday. Introductory week, and I will put all the pieces in place to have the level 3 up and running for this coming week. So if you haven't registered for that level 3 and you've done the level 2, get rocking on that just to make sure you're in the loop. And all level 2ers, I did see there's a couple people that were just like, can I still register for the level 2? The answer is yes, because we're just in the introductory week. We take the first week of these programs just to sort of get everybody all sort of centered and on the same page. So you've got a couple days here to work with before you start falling behind. Level 1ers, I was very pleased to see Grim doing just a stand-up job as always. So I think you guys are off and running, heading in a good direction. So I'm super stoked about that. We had a really cool Algo Scripto meeting yesterday. Gotta say, David, doing just an absolutely incredible job with his Google Sheets code. And he even is thinking about maybe even sharing some of it. He actually showed me what he does on his back end, so we didn't want to broadcast that. But just incredible work. This guy is a Google Sheets monster, so super stoked about all that. We had a nice session with Sin reviewing the DI indicator, the 3 thumbs. I put the updated cleaned up script of Benjamin's in the library. So if you are a scripto type person, I don't really mind at this point that you guys have it, but please understand, I do not encourage people who have not completed the level 1 program to even think about algo trading, because I really need for you to learn like the basic mechanics and how manually trade setups and working with trading plans and all that stuff works before you start getting into algo trading, because you really got to eat your vegetables first and really understand what these tools are designed to do for us. But nonetheless, I was very pleased to see the various different incantations. And actually, I don't know whether Sjord's going to get upset at me or not, but I'm going to do it anyway. Sjord showed me the back end model that he's building out for the site. Maybe we can get him to talk a little bit about this in his upcoming Monday meetings. Man, this is as soon as we get this actually published on the site, this is just going to rock your world. So you basically can go through the entire stock market, looking at all the different, price analysis, reload zones, moving averages, indicators, just to create a massive matrix of information for us to mine on a daily basis. So I got to say, I'm so stoked. If we can just hang in there and let Sjord build this out, man, we are just going to have the most incredible platform. And Joshua, I showed, FYI, Joshua, I showed Sjord your comment about Sjord, and of course he was super pleased about that. Sjord is working diligently with site members to try and build out that matrix to get it to the point where all of your guys' stuff that you're super interested in is added on that as well. So got lots and lots of stuff on the go. Super excited. Interestingly enough, with regard to the market, we're into sort of sell in May and walk away kind of scenario. So I think sort of the Insano up move that we saw off of the January lows, probably going to take a bit of a pause here. And I think we're sort of seeing that in the stock market a little bit. And to a certain degree, we're also seeing it in crypto. We'll talk levels and stuff when we release the bear shortly. As it stands right now, I'm just sort of watching this 1 hour bot. This happens to be on the OK Coin Market. Really interesting how it's developing, but it's basically been a hurry up and do nothing for me for the past couple days. So just sort of letting price develop. And, speaking of our algo meeting that we had yesterday talking about the DI, he's sort of sitting just sort of middle of the road, not really overly bullish, not really overly bearish, just we're consolidating after that big jump. Well, I guess late last week, the pullback, then the jump back up to the top end of the range and just going sideways. But as I said, when we release the bear, I'm sure we'll have lots to talk about there. So hopefully that gets, one other thing I wanted to mention, was very, very pleased to see that Adam K. Bear, and it's actually adorable. I don't know whether you're aware of this, but Adam, there are a few site members that actually have their kids watch these. I have to watch my P's and Q's. I didn't realize there were so many children who watch this video. But the kids all love your icon. Yeah, and one person told me that their kid was like, no, go back and put his image on the screen, Daddy, which I thought was adorable. But we've been talking a little bit, and Adam is very in tune to the crypto market, and we would like to maybe bring on Adam maybe like once a week, once every couple weeks kind of idea, kind of like how we do with Jamie, just for a little segment. We'll maybe call it the Cave Bear 15-minute or something like that. So, and really, ideally, guys, I think I've told you this, a big part of this whole TRI site experience is to try and make a positive difference in this world, try and help you build this community and get it so that the community has like inertia on its own. So, if you're working through the education program, if you're feeling like you've got a setup that you really like, if there's a certain part of the market that really appeals to you and you fancy yourself an expert of that and you'd like to participate in the daily briefs, that's what this is all about, is 1 + 1 = 3. We all work together to make this all a better experience. So as each and every one of you develop, if you feel like you have something to share and you'd like a spot on the daily brief, and maybe it's like once a week, once a month kind of idea, we'd love to have your contribution. So, okay, with all that said, let's dig into bear time. Bear time? I don't know whether that works or not, but anyway. Mr. Bear, what's on your mind today? Why stocks stubbornly refuse to sell off despite the escalating trade war? What's on your mind today?
I was going to let you do the whole hour. You were on the roll there.
And it's interesting how it literally has taken me like a day or two of getting back into the rhythm to sort of pick up my pace again. I completely botched that video I had to do by myself the other day, but I'm feeling like I'm getting more back into the swing of things. I got my crude oil day trading model back up and running, and as you saw, we have algo meetings. We had a really nice TRI SOF meeting. Not really any new trade ideas come out of it because, sell in May and walk away. We're all just sort of sitting on the sidelines. But the point here is I am feeling like I'm getting a little bit more back into the groove.
Okay,
so,
good.
I'm going to try
his normal self again.
I'm going to try, and I'll try really hard, but I'm going to try and shut up now and let you talk. Go.
All right. So first things first, we're going to do our stock market overview. We're going into FOMC. That's happening in about an hour. I think they're releasing the minutes at 1 o'clock today.
Yeah, minutes, not FOMC, but it's just the minutes release, sort of like what were their notes from the last meeting.
Right. So we're going to see what's on the Fed's mind. Stocks are a little bit weak going into that. I think this was a product of, same trade war headlines. Qualcomm was down really big today. Let me see if I can get a chart of that. But, it's interesting. I was trying to figure out if I wanted to buy these puts on the S&P. I'll touch on that in a second. You can see Qualcomm just getting crushed today. A lot of people kind of confused about how to play this through this trade war. And, I was pretty interested as to why this market didn't continue to sell off despite all these tariffs. What's that? Somebody muted. Can you guys still hear me?
Oh, sorry about that. I just wanted to add a little bit here. Qualcomm sold off because of an antitrust ruling, not really trade war related, but more to do with, ironically enough, they crapped on Apple. That's why the stock gapped higher. And Apple had to pay.
They actually made a deal with Apple, right? So what happened was there was this big lawsuit or whatever, and they weren't sure they were going to be providing chips to Apple, and then it turned out they struck a deal, and that's why this thing gapped higher. So now you're saying there's an antitrust, well, whatever. So if it's not trade war related, it is what it is. But I mean, the things that I
and it's interesting too, like in their TRISOF meeting yesterday, we were looking at the home builders and the home retailers, and Lowe's is getting absolutely taken apart here today. So and interesting enough, not really trade war related stuff. This, if anything, this is sort of like broader market kind of just doing its thing. Sorry, please continue.
Yeah, so why is this thing not selling off, and what's going on in the market here? And there was this cool article on Zero Hedge. And again, this is probably, I keep going into this realm, but this might be beyond the scope of what most people here in the audience might be interested in. But there's a lot of this behind the scenes options and sort of risk that dealers have put on their books, and that has to do with gamma risk. And essentially what happens is there's a lot of dealers that have too much risk, and they're trying to flip that in this market. And this is kind of a complicated thing to try to explain. And really, I learned about this last week. The Market Huddle had a great podcast talking about dealer gamma and how they hedge their risk with that. So if you are interested in it, they gave a really great detailed breakdown about this whole CTA level, how it works, why it's useful, how to understand it. And really, it was like a whole new horizon for me. So, if you do like these guys and you do like paying attention to Charlie McElligot's CTA sell levels, that all has to do with where the dealers look like they're overweight certain positions, they're heavy on certain delta positions and hedging risk. You can kind of understand where the market would have to go for them to essentially sell off positions in order to hedge their potential downside. So he makes a living going through and figuring out those levels. And whenever you talk CTA levels, this is kind of the whole thing that he's looking at. So essentially, these markets have not sold off because of these dealer positions, and they're trying to keep their books properly balanced. And essentially, they still have the liquidity and they still have the positioning to enable them to balance this properly. And therefore, they're able to keep sort of the market afloat just by keeping their positions intact here. But, absent anything that really drives this market, for instance, if the Fed comes out and says that they're looking at more of a hawkish stance here on the market, this thing's going to take a huge dump, and the dealers aren't going to be able to prevent or even be able to balance their books properly, and they're going to end up being overweight, and it's just going to be a disaster because this is going to perpetuate the selling into the market. But I mean, I find it hard to believe the Fed's going to come out today and basically say, we're really worried about what we see. We're going to be instituting, or really what we want to see is the Fed just say, we're still data dependent. We're still going to make our decisions based on how the information continues to flow out. But again, if they take a hawkish stance and they're going to start changing monetary policy against the market, that could crush the market. But why would the Fed want to do that? I don't see that happening. But it is important to follow that. And that really, the market's just kind of gone sideways for the last couple of days. And it's interesting that today, going into the meeting, that we're slightly down. I saw a lot of dealer positionings going on that they're positioning themselves long going into this drop-off, which was interesting. I don't know or understand why they're doing that. Maybe it's just a day trade, but nonetheless, it looks like these guys are looking for the Fed to sort of be dovish, to maintain that, hey, we understand that the market's still delicate and we don't want to push this thing over the edge any more than it already is hanging there. You can see the S&P here is sort of playing 38.2 ping pong between these two levels. This is this higher range from March, and then from the recent sell-off in May. We're still trying to resolve it. Is this a W or an M? It looks like it's trying to figure that out today. No real divergences here on the technicals. You can see the buying volume is sort of trailing off on the S&P. So, I really wanted to put on a put, and I'm just still, I was thinking I'm going to reassess this at the end of the brief here as to whether or not I wanted to buy a put that would expire into June, just to try to capture some of the downside. But that's high octane stuff, and that's just me trading, right? No one really here should be doing crazy stuff like what I'm planning here. But again, same thing here on the Dow, potentially toppy, potentially could go higher. This is the crossroads. It's funny because Josh has been posting in the lounge the Top Step Trader video with Hogue in it, and Hogue's the guy that trades below and above value, and we got that nice little icon for him right here. But I was listening to his commentary, and it's interesting. He sees the same thing. He sees the market sort of coiling at a decision-making point, and whichever way this thing breaks is sort of going to determine the trend for these markets over the next coming weeks. And did we see the end of the sell-off? Is there still more to come? I think that's still up in the air here. So the other interesting thing that I saw here was China's offering their tech companies a 5-year tax break in order to offset these tariffs that are being put on through the US. So that's going to impact the way these Chinese stocks are going to behave. And I didn't even take a look at the A50, but I'm interested to see how that's performing. Looks like it's doing the same thing as the US. If you do head and shoulders ideas, I think you talked about this yesterday, and I was mentioning this last week, and it was funny because I saw this last week and you started saying head and shoulders fractal. You can see we had that, as Brian covered yesterday, the little head and shoulders here, potential second head and shoulders coming into the market. Was this the second one, or we need to come up and test up into like 61.8 ideas? I don't know, but China does look like it's getting oversold at the moment. Is this Willie kind of in that territory? And if so, maybe we do need a little bit of a bounce, but that's dependent again on what happens. Not quite completely oversold here. So again, everything's riding on on the Fed again today. Dollar ideas, I was listening to the Macro Voices guys, and Eric Townsend's like, I'm really bullish the dollar and I really like this thing breaking higher, but I had to re-examine my viewpoint because we've been in this trading range for so long that I just can't make heads or tails of why this thing hasn't broken out yet. So I don't really know. And, that's kind of what's going on in this market is you've got the dollar poised to break higher, but it hasn't done that yet. You were interestingly talking about how the euro and the pound, more so the pound, looked like a great short. And then today we've got a headline that Theresa May resign in the next couple hours.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So I think
is that pound bullish or pound bearish?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Do people hate her so much that this thing rallies in the face that she's gone? So maybe they're kind of anticipating that the next person that's put in and installed here might be able to come up with a more favorable deal than she hasn't been able to come up with. But absent just canceling the whole damn thing, I don't see how this is good for England, for the UK at all. But you know, that's a debate for the UKers. I'm not going to stick my neck out there.
Let's see what this. Holy geez! So the market came off a big chunk on that news, I guess here. You know, like the problem here is, can you? Oh, is it screwed up again?
Yeah, it's not too bad, but it's not crystal clear either, I guess.
Yeah. Let's see if I'm. Oh, actually, you know what? I'm using the wrong microphone. That's why. Let's go to the snow. Let's see if that works. Is that any better? I might have to drop out and drop back in.
Yep, you're good.
All right. So, you know, the problem here is, can we go and short the pound here? I don't know. I mean, you can clearly see the top and, you know, heads and shoulders and all that stuff, but it does look like we're coming to the trade a little bit late here. So, yeah, if anything, you know, and you look at the euro looks like a train wreck as well, eh? So, and I suppose $64,000 question. We were looking at some of the gold stocks yesterday, and they just look like bleh. So I'm not quite sure how that's going to spin, to be honest with you, but awfully tough to get bullish of these markets just yet. All right, continue on, sir. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, I like that commentary. I mean, the other thing here is there's some talk about people going long AMD here. I don't know if that's such a terrible thing. I know this isn't your position where you'd want to be interested in this thing, but you know, the fact that we're kind of in reload zones, but I like that as a semiconductor space as a whole, AMD has not been victimized sort of as the rest of the space has. I like the idea of continuing.
Are you serious? I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, hey.
Now, speaking of Mr. Hogue, right? If we accept down into this area, you guys can see where, you know, the POC is. I mean, it's jumping out at you there. And big old gaps on the chart there. You know,
hey, I didn't say you were going to like it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't endorse that idea.
That's why I said it. I mean, NVIDIA here came off a lot worse than the rest of the space did.
What's Intel look like, INTC?
Yeah,
right, he's the big boy in the space.
Pretty poorly as well.
And I suppose, you know, here's the problem, right? Is that these silly trade wars, it goes both directions. So, you know, if Mr. Trump's going to shit all over Hawaii or whatever, could the Chinese come out and shit all over AMD and NVIDIA and Intel and stuff and just make, you know, playing this game for like 30 years. And I said this in the TRISOF meeting yesterday, I don't think we need to be in a big hurry to do too much of this sort of, you know, cyclic buying of stocks, playing the economy until at least the end of June, if not the first week of July. So somebody write that down, and let's go back and let's review at the end of June, beginning of July, what all these charts look like. But that AMD to me looks like that's got trouble written all over it.
Yeah, you know, Intel actually probably more up your space. Bullish divergence potentially in play here, coming back down to the bottom end of the range. Maybe this one's not as terrible looking. I don't know. Would you be interested in something like this, or would you want it to come all the way back down here?
I just don't. I don't think there's a hurry on any of this stuff. It's just sort of my gut. Look at your crackhead. I mean, when your crackhead looks like that, do we really need to be too aggressively bullish?
Right. No doubt. This is not the real place to be taking the trade today, but something to put on a watch list. Because as this thing confirms, and as we potentially get divergences confirmed,
I mean, Willie's stupid, so that's good.
And rally ideas. I don't know.
The question, you know, like I could, if anything, like you said, watch list, not bad. You know, if they knock it down another $5-10 here, does that start to spit up TRISOF trade ideas? That's probably when this thing will start looking attractive to me.
Yeah, so I don't know. Let's just see if we can do this really quickly here. You think this thing will be good for 6 months from now on the call side? So we do.
Well, I think that I could very easily see us come back down. Keep in mind, this is a V bottom down here. There's a massive gap because it closed on this day. It had its earnings the next day. So this technically is a open air down here. Like if we put this on a bar chart, you can see the hole here. Also too, there's okay, and that one's been filled in, so that's good. Like if we do 50% rules right now, and we should be thinking about like $51 heading down the road. So can we buy like I don't know, like a $50 call for less than 75 cents?
You can actually buy the $45 calls, which means we can pay $3.26 out to January 2020. And right now they're at $3.50. So they're pretty close.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, close. So yeah, maybe, as you pointed out, Willie is stupid. We are below value. The div is there. The seasonal window will start to firm up through this window here. Could we spend this next month carving out that W? Yeah, I could see that. So and dips against these low end of the ranges will start to spit up that derivatives formula.
Yeah, I actually really like that. And I think I would take my cues sort of from this SMH, or not the SMH. What's the inverse semiconductor?
Is it like SOXX or something like that?
People were talking no, it's not the SOXX.
Where's Nathaniel? He loves this stuff.
It's the SOX. So this is the inverse bear 3X. And what I'd be looking is for this thing to top out. But what's worrying...
Oh, SOX.
Yeah. So what worries me is that this thing's continuing to move higher.
Yeah.
And you've got this MACD that's kind of made a higher high. We haven't quite gotten to 38.2 or the higher time frame. So I like your idea, right?
Oh yeah, like I could see AMD just get fucking bitch slapped here, right? And that would launch that thing up into that 38.2 area, and then we start thinking about, okay, let's wait for these bottoms,
Maybe. I mean, I guess I'm just crazy. I see something different.
Well, this is what makes a market, right? This is the whole point of the market, right? Is, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. But, I suppose we could maybe hunt bot longs, but I'd have to have 3 lows. And we just made a new low there, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah. So you don't, I mean, the classic setups that, you would typically use, they're just not there, right? And those are the ones that keep you out of trouble, keep you from, blowing up your position right away and make you, set up to do things properly. And there's plenty of other names out there that you can take advantage
of. This guy doesn't report until August, a long time away.
Yeah. So how do they do on whatever? It is what it is. Let's not dive too deep into any more.
Right. I'm sorry if I'm controversial and not.
Hey, you know what? That's what we want to hear, right? I mean, if the two of us agreed on everything, this would be the most boring show in the world.
Okay. All right. Now we're gonna head into crypto stocks. Oh boy.
Well, it's just funny, right? These guys never called me back. I never even got as much of an email from them, and we were thinking about buying them back when it was $20. And the fact that these guys were not interested in reaching in their client relations, investor relations, like why should I even buy this thing? And this
that's definitely a bad sign. But, this is a really good lesson for everybody. My old VSC mentor taught me this. Does anybody remember what the price of this asset was the day before they did the rollback? Because that's the number that you got to remember. And this thing will be a buy when the price of it after the rollback is the same as it was the day before the rollback. So it's interesting, and I seem to recall this thing worked, it was down around 10, 20 cents a share. So really interesting to see how this thing has worked its way right back down to that old price level. So I'm not quite sure how we would find that on a site like TradingView. But my old VSC guy, he always said, and I've seen this happen repeatedly on these VCIM names, that this thing will bottom. Like I think they did the rollback around the end of the year, right? Do you guys remember that? And it was like 10, 15 cents a share way back over here. So they roll the stock back, then they work the stock right back down to that old price level. And that's actually when it's a buy. And, do you just happen to have on the Bollinger Bands on that thing? And they seem to be tightening up. Like the volatility has come right out of this stock. So the only thing we really want to, if you are interested in this DPW and the blockchain, stocks in particular, I think what we really want to see now is, some nice W's come in, right? And then that'll tell us, okay, at least we got some floors to work with. Yeah. All right. I don't know whether you even wanted to talk about DPW, but anyway, there's my 2 cents.
There you go. It was kind of crypto related. Other things that I was interested in, you guys know that I'm in this railroad short. I've got these $75 puts working out till August. I really liked how this thing was breaking down and this bear div that confirmed this sort of long bear div. And now I'm just waiting for confirmation here of another market structure top to come in here. So I think, I was reading, I forget where I saw it, but there's some seasonality to selling railroads in May, probably along with everything else in the market. But I did like this play. And you can see that, big sell volume came in here yesterday, kind of rejecting this level. But, this is, my options my options portfolio. I don't know if this is something that you would be interested in, because you'd be wanting to play 6 months worth of time to the downside. And I only gave myself to August.
Well, it's the if you can scroll out to last May, June, we can see. Okay, so it looks like that January low is the pivot we have to work with. 50% rule of that move, I guess, is that $69 or whatever you had there.
Yeah.
So a nice little move down in there. I think you're going to see a world of support at the top of value there. So, and really that makes sense because that's the weekly breakout level. So, if we dip and your options go at the money, you probably have a nice little premium built into that trade. So, dips test of top of value, 200 SMA, 38.2s. That seems all perfectly realistic as we work through this seasonal top. It would be interesting, and I think seasonality transports. We have the commodities seasonality charts. There, I don't know whether you can see my screen. Here is the transport seasonality, and so as you pointed out, they typically top out there in May. And they actually don't officially bottom. You're going to, this is probably your dip. I don't know whether you can see my screen, Thomas, but this is the dip into that sort of $72 area that you're probably going to see through that seasonal window. Then we're going to probably counter trend rally right back up to the top end of the range, very normal through sort of mid to end summer. And then we make our ultimate low in the fall. And this is just so cliche, right? Buy when it snows, sell when it goes kind of idea. So yeah, I could totally agree with that thesis. I guess the question ultimately here is, who's the, CSX is a big railroad. Who's their biggest customers? Is it like the ag business? Do they do a lot of business with CSX? And actually, this is where we need to dig into your cool little poor man's Bloomberg terminal and see what's going to drive CSX lower. Because clearly, maybe they do a lot of business with the grain industry. And of course, the grains have just been absolutely destroyed here with all this trade war stuff. So, maybe for fun, we'll do that as sort of a research project here through today. CSX, right?
Yep.
All right. Anyway, sorry to derail you there, but Oh, there we go. So initiatives based on what's hurting. Oh, what's hurting the railroads? So that would be a good one to sort of get an idea of what's driving the market right now. I just wonder. Like I actually see when I look at the market, I actually see that the energy market is just getting ripped here. And I got a funny feeling that crude oil is about to just, you can actually see the AB equals CD starting to form itself here. And something along those lines. Almost textbook back down to 38.2 levels here. And they're just having massive builds in the inventories of oil. So I just wonder how that plays out with the transports. What I really wanted to do was load up, but I can't seem to remember how I got that chart. But I wanted to load up I think it's here. Your transports versus the Dow study versus the Russell 2000, the small cap stocks. Yeah, this one here. So IYT is our transports, right? And it's actually interesting how they just M'd out here. And this is the Dow. So can you guys see how we actually are getting a little bit of Dow theory signal in here? I don't know whether you guys can see my chart here. The Dow actually moved to new highs here just recently, but the transports didn't. That's actually a big warning sign that the Dow probably could get punched in the nose here. So that's kind of cool. Anyway, wow, Brian, shut the hell up. Okay, continue, sir.
I like that. So I added the Russell onto my screen here. Russell's in yellow, Dow's in red, blue is transports. And yeah, transports broke down, Dow did not. And Russell, like if that breaks down, you're making fresh new lows on the Russell. And I use the IWM. I guess you could use the RUT, but oh shit, this is not what I want here. But yeah, the Russell's, the small caps, and how is that thing? It's just lagged the market, right? I mean, this thing took forever to make those highs. Eventually, when it did, I guess you've got that prairie dog set up where this
cool. Look at that. Look at that divergence on that move higher. Remember, we were even talking about that. Oh, okay. The small caps are breaking out. No, the total ad fake. No,
I mean, the problem I have with these small caps is they don't know what the hell they're doing here. We're in that reload zone here, filled in these gaps. We're not quite oversold. Do we have bull div? Not quite. So, I mean, if you are trying to trade this thing, I guess I'd be waiting for a dip down below one more time to sort of make us, give us that bullish divergence. But it looks early for any kind of bounces. I also was looking at the VIX, and the same thing on the VIX. I was so close to buying some calls on this thing, but I'm wondering if we need to go back all the way down to 13.7, which means the S&P just kind of goes sideways. And that kind of makes me think that these Fed minutes are just going to be a non-event, right? This is just going to be like business as usual. We're not going to do anything here. And maybe they did something different last time. What was it? It was some kind of like repo. I'll have to find it. But essentially, nobody saw that coming, and they're just like, "What does that even mean?" For whatever reason, that escapes me. That new policy that they put in at the last meeting.
Well, I think it was a effective funds rate versus actual funds rate, and they changed the I think it was like reserve requirements for the banks. Nothing really that affects the public, but more sort of internal mechanisms. Yeah, it was the SRF, standing repo facility. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, good point. And we're probably going to hear that kind of sort of double talk. Yeah, I think Thomas is flipping coins while he's doing his daily brief today. One thing I did want to mention, which we often see this happen, is when the broader market goes in the pooper. This is when the what they basically call the non-cyclical or sort of the economically insensitive sector starts to outperform. As the market was breaking there, we were really lucky. The TRI SOF people, we got off a really nice little double on this IDERA. I can't remember. This little thing popped up nicely here. And then I thought it was so cool. Nathaniel, who really does a lot of great work in the stock market, he was posting this chart here this morning. Again, another sort of, it shouldn't surprise us that if the broader market, if transports, if tech stocks, if all that, they're in this sort of pooper for the next month, you're going to see the economically insensitive names, pharma names start to outperform. And here's an excellent anecdote of that kind of price action. So this is more sort of validation that, yeah, we're just going through the very normal seasonal pullback in the economically sensitive names, and the sectors that don't really care about the economy, i.e. pharma, they often start to outperform here. So this is actually, like Thomas, you're very sort of in tune with the pharma industry. This is actually the kind of market where I think you could do really, really well hunting those pharma names. And, nice call here, Nathaniel, clearly identifying W's, beautiful divergences. Look at this beautiful MACD div that was forming way over here. Really stupid. There's the W. And of course, this is the end result, rock and roll. And 50% rules. I mean, this thing could easily work its way right back up to the top of value here. This is all open air here. So if we do get any kind of pullbacks, maybe counter trend rallies on the cyclical names, back up against the highs, fill in the gaps. Maybe take a good look at names like this as we work our way through this next month or so. And I would be very interested to hear if Thomas has. Look at, he's just scrolling through. Okay, where are my pharma names? Where are my pharma names? Let's keep an eye out for pharma names and economically insensitive names to outperform here over the next month or two.
Wasn't this one of the SOF potential names that we were talking about before you left? This RGLS, Wriggles.
Oh, wow, that looks cute. Yeah, right down at the bottom end of his range.
Yeah, this is something that I bought, and I forgot I had open orders working on this thing that I got filled on a couple days ago. So I'm
Oops.
well, fine, right? That's why I put the damn orders there. I don't have to babysit them. They're just sitting there. If I get filled, great. If not, I don't know anything about it.
All right. Yeah. So, there you go. So, Tom, I've given you here this VTVT. Thank you, Nathaniel. Great idea. Pretty looking little W. Thomas has given you this RGLS. So there's a couple names for you to chew on. And what would be really cool is if we could find some crypto coins that happen to be like targeting the pharmaceutical sector and the healthcare sector, because my hunch is they'll probably do well over the next month or so.
I hope so. I've got a couple of those. The folding coin, isn't that delisted now? And
folding coin. That's an interesting one. That's all about folding proteins and all that. I never did understand the fundamental model behind that, though.
It was kind of, do you remember the SETI where they used computer processor or people's spare computer processing speed to try to decode all of the noise that they were gathering from space to try to figure out if there was intelligent life? They were like leveraging the idea of crowdsourcing everyone's computer to decode and try to analyze this data. It's the same thing for protein folding. Basically, they were leveraging everyone's computer processor to try to figure out how these different proteins could fold up and how they could use them as therapeutics. But I don't know. I thought they got delisted off of Trex or something happened to them. They're worth way less now.
Well, I suppose through, and actually it's interesting, speaking of crypto, I am seeing, and I think we sort of talked about this a little bit yesterday, I am seeing a lot of names that are basically trading now below value and right down at the bottom end of their trading ranges. Like there was one this morning that popped up on the list, and it was almost exactly what I was sort of talking about, this IGNIS. Perfect example, below value, anybody who could sneak in, somebody's coming in and buying hard. You can see the bull divs coming in here. So, guys, if you are an altcoin trader, This is definitely a very interesting market state that we're in right at the moment. No, I still see. I mean, I see that the price of this folding coin has come off, but it looks like it's still trading on Trex. So it might be interesting to go and look at this. This coins, like, do they have like a website, and how is that that project actually going? If we look at this, interestingly enough, in US dollar terms, that's not that bad looking of a chart, is it? I don't know. To me, it's not a terrible looking chart. So, we're right down at the bottom end of the range. Really, I wouldn't have a problem nannies nibbling away on a name like this. But I don't know. Are we ready to make our move over to crypto now? Was that a good segue? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
I don't mind that chart. It's not bad, the folding coin. I just, those sideways moving ones where they poke up and get popped back down. I don't know. I guess I have bad karma with that kind of stuff. Well, not bad karma.
Totally. I mean, this, and I also talked about this before. I do believe that this is kind of like a Verge market. I think we talked to you guys about that, and maybe it was the broiler chickens. This thing might just park itself sideways here for the next 6-8 months. It's not screaming, I'm going up today, you got to get in now. But is there potential here for nanny nibbles just to slowly accumulate? I mean, do you go and buy it here? Maybe not. Maybe draw your reload zones, work your bids, blah blah blah. But at the same time too, I suppose, like those pharma names, since the end of March, now we're I guess a couple months down the road. In US dollar terms, actually, this thing hasn't done too badly. But do you go and buy it here today? No, I don't think so. That wouldn't be a good idea. All right. I don't know whether I was sharing my screen, but anyway. All right. Let's head on over to crypto now. We're already 50 minutes into the broadcast. So, Thomas, are you still with us? Did we lose him?
Yep, I'm here. So let's move into the crypto land. Let's hit some news quickly. A bunch of news. WhatsApp is now allowing users to accept and send crypto between each other. If you have WhatsApp, it's kind of like your text messaging, except instead of leveraging your carrier's text messaging protocol, you're instead using your internet data connection. If you don't know what WhatsApp is, you're probably not going to, I don't know, maybe you do want to send crypto this way, but you essentially have to download these WhatsApp bots called Lite.im and Zulu Republic platform. And you can easily send Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum, and the Zulu native token ZTX and send it through WhatsApp. Now, I'm wondering if this was launched because of the WeChat ban, because I know the Chinese do use not only WeChat, but they also use WhatsApp. And correct me if I'm wrong, this isn't banned yet in China, but I don't know. Maybe this is sort of that replacement for the inability for people to conduct transactions on WeChat. But this is great. I mean, to be able to do this, and isn't WhatsApp sort of owned by Facebook anyway? I know this isn't developed by WhatsApp, but to integrate this into the platform using this bot, that's pretty cool. This definitely brings transactions to a lot of people that didn't know that they could use crypto. I find this very encouraging for adoption. I think it's great for people who want to transact with each other but don't want to go through the banking system. This is really, really cool and really, really easy for people.
When did that news article get released?
This was today.
Yeah. Do you have a time?
I do not have a time.
Because I noticed it was interesting.
We can see a tweet. This was tweeted out on May 19th.
Oh, 19th. Okay.
So 11:20.
I noticed, remember CNBC came out, I think it was yesterday or the day before, and said, yeah, we think Bitcoin's going to go down. And, overnight things were looking a bit heavy. And then all of a sudden I noticed, first thing this morning through the New York kill zone, price reversed and started to head back up. So I was wondering whether that news release happened to correspond with that. So,
Yeah, and Alex here has said that you cannot use WhatsApp in China, but I'm sure if people are using VPNs, there's ways around that as well. All right, so that's that article. I remember a couple people were posting in the lounge that they got an email from Kraken that they were offering shares to the Bank to the Future. This offer was only until June. They were trying to raise £4 million, which is about $5 million. And now they're sitting at aims of reaching £12 million or £15 million. They said the fundraiser has attracted 832 investors so far. I mean, I know it's a couple of people who are invested in this thing and they really love it. I can't comment as to anything about investing in them or whether or not I would even do it. So it's interesting that Kraken's like, for a limited time only, you can buy into this. I don't know why they're partnering with Kraken to do this, but everyone's inbox was sort of flooded with this email. And it was funny to watch everyone post this thing in the lounge. So that was that. If you weren't aware of it, it's been kind of spammed at you, whether or not you wanted to buy into Bank to the Future. Next article here is the Central Bank of Russia expects a crypto bill to be adopted in the spring of 2019. So Russia's going to publish sort of the regulations and the guidance as to how and how you can transact or whether or not you can actually do business in crypto, which I think they're going to allow, and how that's going to how that's going to impact taxes and all this other legalese and such. So that's going to be released here. Is this going to impact the market? I don't really think so. The only thing that I could really see this happening is if they want to be friendly for ICOs, that all of a sudden this will attract a whole bunch of money there. And if I were Putin, that's probably what I would do, just to raise a whole bunch of money. Maybe they're going to come out and say, you know what? Our crypto bill is going to only allow the Russian coin to be used and spent here in Russia, but everything else is banned. That would be quite the spin, but I don't think that's going to happen either. So keep an eye on that.
Probably, we should keep an eye on Yobit. Do they have any relations with the Russian government? And then Waves. Waves is also a Russian platform, isn't it? So those might be really good proxies to watch how that is being played out.
Yeah. Next article, Cryptopia founder. Everyone knows that unfortunately this one has been put into liquidation. I know a lot of people have been impacted by this. This is, a really sad story. And the guy is coming out, the founder wants to start a new exchange and he wants you to start depositing into it. And accordingly, this guy hasn't really worked for Cryptopia since February 2018, according to his LinkedIn profile. And he's been building up this other exchange. So, I mean, to me, what that means is the guy knew that his exchange was in trouble and he goes, I'll just work on something else and let that fail. I mean, that's a really bad taste to put in everyone's mouth and a really tough pill for people to swallow. Lost money on Cryptopia? Come to my new exchange and trade on there instead. No, thank you. Really, really sad that guy wants to try and do that. Anyway, next thing here, Ethereum testnet went live, and that's the Ethereum 2.0, the whole proof of stake model. This thing is now live. You can deposit 3.2 Ethereum from their test network into the test network and become a validator for the system to participate in it. They're still trying to figure out, interest rates and what you're going to get paid to stake your position. They're saying the current launch is phase 0, does not have smart contracts yet, and they're planning to launch those in phase 2. So Ethereum 2.0 is well on its way. Is this going to push, they're claiming that this is why the price was pushed higher. I would argue that price is being pushed higher just because of the rest of the market's catching a bid here, not because everyone's super excited about joining this Ethereum 2.0 network. In fact, I'd even counter argue that people are afraid that this proof of stake model is not going to work out properly because they can't figure out what the right rate to stake people at, and they may end up making Ethereum even more centralized than it is currently now. So they have a lot of work to do as to ironing out the specifics to how they'll keep this network working as far as its decentralization. So keep an eye on that. And then the other thing that I found which was interesting is that this BlockFi, which these guys basically lend out money, and their interest rates for Bitcoin and Ethereum are starting to be cut down. Now, I mean, we can all kind of hypothesize as to why that might be, but I found it interesting that, especially for Ethereum, that the interest rates are going down. And I wonder if this has to do with the potential transition to staking, and maybe you're going to end up, people would rather go onto the staking platform and get their interest from that as opposed to this company. Why is it going down for Bitcoin? That I'm not really sure about, but it is interesting to see that these interest rates are going down. Maybe the Federal Reserve of Bitcoin and Ethereum decided to slash interest rates without telling anyone. Who knows? Which does not exist. So that's your news. Nothing too crazy. I mean, that kind of explains why everything's going sideways. And actually, the other thing that I want to touch on is the VanEck ETF decision came out on Monday. We were supposed to get the decision Tuesday, but they basically kicked the can down the road again until October, and we didn't see the market react. I think that's one of the first times we've seen an ETF decision that really didn't crush the market. So I thought that was really nice to see that the market doesn't really care as much about this ETF as it used to, and now it's more about things like institutional money coming in, big platforms like E-Trade and TD Ameritrade that have hit the market, news like Bakkt is going to hit in the next couple months. People are like, you know what, the ETF really isn't the driver here. It's all the innovation that's been coming online to get the institutions into the space, absent an ETF approval. And to me, I think that's great. Now, the question is going to be in October, if they do improve this ETF, is the market going to go up? If the market's not going down on this news, people are either sick and tired of hearing about it, and they've already priced in the fact that the SEC is going to deny it, or it just doesn't care anymore. And then when it comes into October, does it go up or down? So it's an interesting sort of thought experiment to try to figure out. But I mean, as far as technicals are concerned, I mean, really nothing's changed again since yesterday. I don't have any trades here other than the fact that I've got some bids working on the other coins, like Bitcoin, Ethereum commentary. I mean, I can quickly run through this if, it's even worth anyone's time. But I mean, Willie is overbought here on the 3-month contract. You know what? It would be interesting to see how the forward spreads are doing. Are we in contango? Or are we backwardized? I think somebody was posting that we are finally in contango, but we'll have to see once that loads. So this thing looks a little bit dangerous.
Here's my spreads.
Yeah, let's see what yours say.
Actually, I was even posting this morning. It was interesting to see that the forwards are trying to lead the market higher. And, I also like to watch them on the short-term basis. And just even over the short term, you can see the forwards are all trading at a premium to cash, which we haven't seen for a while. For a very long period of time, it was the exact opposite situation. So that's encouraging to see. So to answer your just very quick point there, we are attempting to actually accept back into contango. And actually, it looks like, this is a 6-hour chart. Obviously, it can change on a heartbeat. But, if we do print up here, it looks like the market wants higher. And also, too, this is a really important sort of longer-term pivot, because you can see the actual W that's trying to form here is really big. And really, it's just really a question of, can the market accept above that sort of reaction pivot high there? You can see we got up into it, failed, got up into it, failed, and now we blasted through it. And you can see the battle here at that sort of pivot level. It sure looks to me like the market's trying to accept higher. Hopefully that helps answer that question.
Yeah, it's interesting. You're using that 6-hour. So I wonder what would happen if I throw this thing into a 6-hour chart. Yeah, I guess it looks pretty similar to the 4-hour. But yeah, the fact that the forwards are leading the market, I don't know how to put any kind of credence into that now that I don't think there's as much interest in these forwards contracts as there used to be. But nonetheless, I mean, this 4-hour chart's still like Brian said, it's poised to go higher, but I don't really like what I'm seeing on the daily. But I don't have setups, right? Other than the fact that this thing can just continue to march into that 10 grand level. And then I guess I don't know.
Yeah, when I, just if you just quickly took a quick boo at this chart, this is Litecoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin on the weeklies. Do we really have topping action on these charts? I mean, I do respect that CNBC suggested, take short shots against the highs here. I think on balance, from a trader's perspective, that's not a terrible idea. But I remember learning years and years and years ago, if a market that is poised to go down can't go down, then what does that imply when the market's poised to go back up? This might turn into a very explosive move up top here. So be ready, guys. I think the market had the green light to go down, and it just couldn't find any sellers. So that's the only thing that I would sort of add to the conversation here was, we definitely had like trade location against old highs. We had M tops. We had little mini reload zones come in. And the market, it had the green light to dump. If it wanted to dump, it had the green light. And it's just not finding sellers. And then, just sort of to dovetail with what I was talking about earlier, these weekly charts don't look like they're getting ready to dump. What I see is up volume, up volume, up volume, up momentum, up momentum. The only one that hasn't really confirmed this up momentum move yet is Litecoin here, but it hasn't confirmed a bearish divergence yet. So I'm a little bit reluctant to really call tops on things like, especially things like Bitcoin and Ethereum, with the weekly charts looking like this. They're not poised to dump just yet, in my opinion. So anyway, that's the only thing I would add to that.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's exactly what I see on the charts too. So, I mean, other than what Brian said and me not wanting to repeat anything there, I'm looking again at that XLM. This thing did come down just a little bit. Where's the chart? Should I stick it on here? Or I have it on my altcoin chart. It's interesting. TradingView keeps knocking me out, logging me out, and then asking me to re-log in all the time. And I don't think that's a cookie issue, but it seems to be working now. Where's my altcoin chart? So here's this. And I had bids working on XLM, on that Lumens. Haven't been filled yet. I also saw a lot of people talking about Ripple on Twitter, that might have more potential upside. I mean, look, if Bitcoin rallies here, what's going to happen to the rest of these names as the liquidity gets sucked back out of these things? I think what will happen is that I'll get filled on my Lumens bids, and then Bitcoin eventually makes its highs or breaks the new highs violently. Things starts to put in a topping pattern over the next couple weeks, if that happens. And then you start to see the altcoins start to come up. But I mean, as far as like buying Ripple here, I mean, I hate this freaking name, but Brian, you were talking the other day that you like this thing. I don't know. I just look at this chart. I see that we're coming back down, testing this neckline, but at the same time, we've got this potential market structure top, potential, not quite any divs there, but I don't know. I don't like buying this thing here, especially when the liquidity can evaporate out of the other names and just kind of get sucked into Bitcoin, Ethereum.
I think before I left, like if you could like maybe put on a daily chart, I distinctly remember suggesting, just before I left on my little vacation, you see the little bottom that came in down there. I was suggesting that, and making money from trading often means you have to take sort of a contrarian trade. Nobody was interested in this thing whatsoever against those lows. I could potentially see like a bot continuation trade develop here, but you're not buying the bottom of the market here. This would be sort of like a mid sort of trade move. Not nanny nibble-ish kind of stuff. this would be sort of you're playing sort of the middle of the move. Where was that? That's XRP, right? Whoops. Where did that type? Oh, it's funny when it happens. XRP USD. We just look at it on Phoenix. Everybody hopefully can see the W's against the bottom end of the range here. Like slick, right? W's, reload zones against the bottom end of the range, below value. Willie, I don't think Willie actually got stupid here. Nice little bullish breakout on volume. But coming to the trade now, I think you're sort of middle of the trade. And if anything, what I'm thinking here, and it's probably valid, is good old bot. So if we go boobity boo, and then bought that up, did 33, did not go beyond 66. Do we have 3 lows? If we go bot trade, boom. Yeah, so you can see 1 low, 2 lows, 3 lows, 4 lows. You want to buy this 40 cents area here, looking for a push up into 54 cents. I could see a trade there. We could also LJ this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So any kind of market structure on the other side of this trend line, rock and roll. So probably a little bit early to take this bot setup if you were so inclined. Maybe if this is an inside bar and it reverses, you can get a nice little entry there, risking against these lows. But you can clearly see if we lose these lows, the profile, we're probably going to have to dump back down into sort of this 32 cent area. So, maybe there's a trade there at 40. Risking 36, so you risk basically 10%. I suppose you could go over to things like MEX, and I don't know, does OKCoin have a Ripple proxy?
Yeah, they do.
All right, and maybe hunt setups to trade that, but this would be a trade at this point. This would not be Nanny Nibbles kind of stuff.
What do you think about liquidity getting sucked out of these altcoins if Bitcoin catches a bid and breaks out?
Well, one thing I do notice, keep in mind, we're looking at this in US dollars. If we look at this versus Bitcoin, it probably looks very different. I did notice, Joshua created an altcoin index of his fundamental ideas in US dollars, which was kind of cool. And it actually has a W working. So I know, people are Bitcoin maximalists and all that kind of stuff. I think they all sort of have their time in the sun. And the weird thing about Ripple is they have sort of their own army of supporters and backers and stuff. And I think they, like a little bit of marketing, they can start, pounding the drum beats and all that kind of stuff. So I think that, Bitcoin is going through its own cycle, and it's doing its thing. I think, there's probably a lot of people that are going to be looking at crypto and going, okay, I'd like to invest. They look at the Bitcoin chart and they go, fuck, I can't buy that. There's the bottom way down there. All right, well, let's start cycling through the names. And are there any ideas that are still kind of close to their bottoms and that I could participate in? And really simply put this, I like the levels here because you got a whole bunch of lows to work with, but you never know what the hell is going to happen in crazy trading world. This would be a trade setup kind of the thing. Like, look at my setups come in, and even looking at short-term momentum here, you might look at this and go, you know what? If this thing starts to W and starts to turn, all right, rock and roll. But as long as the momentum's looking like this, I'm not really in any big hurry. But to answer your question specifically, I'm thinking more like it, just trade the setups. If they come in, great. If they're the setups in your plan, got to take the setup, versus what's Brian's opinion about one story versus another, because most time my opinion's wrong anyway. So there you go. I hope that answers the question.
I do want to show you this chart. It does. Thank you. Remember before you left last year for the summertime, you looked at the Ethereum Bitcoin chart and you were like, oh shit, this looks terrible. It's interesting that if we kind of scroll all the way out to what could have happened here. So, right, you left when? Probably in July, early July, right? You were looking at the market here, and then boom, this thing just got knocked down all the way into September. Now, we kind of made new lows, and then we kind of muddled along, tried to bounce back up, but now we're back to the bottom end of this range, and then Ethereum denominated in Bitcoin put in this really quick reversal V bottom. Now everyone knows what a V bottom is and that eventually we need to go back down there. But I'm just wondering if there is still continuation left in this market. I know that, you know, there's no setup here and it doesn't look like something to play, but how is that going to work also as liquidity sort of moves around? Because I'm seeing this market behave a little bit differently than you normally would. Like, you know, you're seeing specific names kind of do their own thing. That's kind of what I'm seeing here in Ethereum versus Bitcoin, is that same, it's doing its own thing. Ethereum's still strong and Bitcoin's still strong. So, I mean, there's definitely money flying into this thing. I mean, where could this thing potentially go? I mean, that's something to entertain. But, you know, I know you don't like V bottoms. And I mean, do you see this thing denominated in Bitcoin coming all the way back down and giving people a buying opportunity? Or is this thing just going to take off? I know that's a hard question, but I mean, it's just behaving so much differently than we're used to seeing. The last time this thing V bottomed, you know, it ratcheted higher, came off just a little bit, and then moved back up, sort of like a harmonic ABCD over here. And then we kind of came back down again. Are we going to see that here? We get one more pop higher and then see Ethereum come off in Bitcoin terms is something that I'm trying to entertain, just to see how I can sort of play this cash denominated market. So it's a really interesting level. I don't even know, you know, that probably wasn't even helpful commentary.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm really thinking Ethereum versus Bitcoin. I'm thinking more like Ethereum versus USD. And, you know, same sort of conversation as Ripple. Are we buying the bottom here? I think you can clearly see the bottom came in there about middle of February. At best, and I did see people in the lounge actually posting this, I think you could go down to like maybe like a 4-hour chart and draw a fib off of the late April lows up to these highs. And you could probably see a bot set up very much like the Ripple chart that I have on my screen here. ETH versus USD on OKCoin. We'll go boobity boo. Yeah, so you can sort of see it already. I don't know. Maybe I've been playing this game so long I see these damn things in my sleep. But I'd go boobity boo. And I would go bot setup. So did we do 33? Yes. No more than 66. Good. Then I would just simply clone this and project it off the lows. Throw on my bot levels, the trade levels. Boobity boo. Boobity shmoo. And I don't know whether I'm showing the right screen here or not, guys. If I'm not, I apologize. So I just quickly eyeballed this. It doesn't look like it's totally accurate, but you know, you all can do this. So you can actually see 1 low, 2 lows, 3 lows. Look how the market itself is setting up the trade off of this 263.53.2 area. I thought that's really interesting. And if this is a trend continuation move, then it's suggesting probably 371 area. And the only other thing I would sort of add to this conversation is, you know, good old 50% rules. If we use just these highs from last spring, you know, what's a 52-week range? We should see that, actually not interesting. So 50% rule of this range. Problem is that as we go by in time, that 50% level is going to have to come down because we're already into the end of May here. But if we go off of that 52-week range there, basically 410, which actually I do like that idea because in essence, the old low, right, that's going to be a huge pivot point. This low right here, that's going to be a pivot point. Think of people sleeping on the couch, all that kind of conversation. So you can see, and also too, actually, this is kind of cool. You can see how there's a little profile there and then a bigger profile here. And of course, that creates our good old MUOC situation right there. So, I think if you are interested in Ethereum, the sort of absolute awesome, sexy, super killer buy level came in about middle to the end of February. And at present, if you did want to trade this, I think you're thinking trend continuation setups, think bots. And it's to me, it'd be a question of risking about 40 bucks, looking to make about $110, $120. So that's sort of what I see on Ethereum at the moment.
Yeah, I don't like the way the daily looks. I'm almost wondering if we can get a better entry from where we are now on the daily. Willie is overbought. Do have this, I mean, it is coiling, right? And you don't have any kind of bearish divergence in the market just yet. Maybe this thing just needs to go sideways for a bit. Oh, look, this isn't completely overbought, so I'm wrong. All right, X that. I'm just doing it off of Coinbase. Brian's levels are very close to the OK Coin levels too. Let me take all this crap off here. But I kind of like that same area on Brian's chart. If you kind of take the same idea and apply it to your Coinbase chart, 50% levels like 400 bucks. You do your ABCDs and your bots, and it's pretty close to that as well. And I think we did that last week for everyone on the higher time frames, so you can go and draw those as well. So cool setups. I think we're getting a lot of stuff across the market, so it'd be really nice to see Bitcoin and Ethereum break higher. And yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, is there anything else that we can really cover here? I mean, I know we were looking at...
I mean, it's already 20 past the hour, so I think these people... What do you think, Mr. Mayor? Did they get good value for participating today?
Very much, sir.
Yeah, I think so. As always, Thomas, you do an absolutely awesome job. I'm so privileged to work with you. Everybody here at TRI is so fortunate to have you here, so thank you so much.
Thanks. It's always a pleasure. Sorry if I was a little scatterbrained. I sure like to have better setups, but it's a hard... a guy like me trading these markets is I got in on my trade on Ethereum close to the bottom, and then as the thing worked its way higher and hit my objective, I'm just out of the market and I'm sort of paralyzed at that point. But a guy like you, where you've got those trend continuation setups, I think that's the kind of market where people who bought an ABCD and anything like that, you really can continue to play this market with that trade.
Yeah. Well, I think it's not a bad idea, like the demonstration models, trading plans that I have on the school and the library page and stuff that we show the level oneers. I think it's not a bad idea for you to get comfortable with a trading range setup, Eltangonators, that kind of stuff, and also a trend continuation setup, bots, so that you're flexible. And you can participate in any kind of market state. But at the same time, too, remember, I've been doing this forever. If you just want to concentrate on one type of market state and get really good at that, just like Thomas, he's just become an absolute shark using his particular setups. He's really learned the concept of divergence really well. He's really gotten in touch and in tone with his preferred markets that he likes using. You will just want to work one particular market state. You know that it works and kick ass at it. It's totally fine. Just remember, Brian's been doing this forever, right? So,
yeah.
Okay, why don't we leave it at that? Excellent contributions, as always. I think we are going to leave it at that for today. Thank you very much, Thomas. I don't know whether you're going to be around tomorrow or what day is today? Today's Wednesday. So I guess we'll do the baby powder report tomorrow. Were you planning on being here tomorrow? I can't remember.
No, tomorrow not for me.
Okay, So that'll work well. I know, Adam, we sort of extended the offer if you wanted to do a 5-10 minute presentation on what you're seeing in the market. Maybe when Thomas isn't here tomorrow, you could put something together for us for tomorrow to dovetail with Julian. Totally fine. It's up to you. And of course, everything has to clear through the mayor. The mayor's office has the final say on everything, right? So speaking of which, Mr. Mayor, you feel like we gave these people good value? I think I already asked you once, but what do you
Double
think?
approval. It's a double approval now, I guess.
Pardon me?
It's a double approval now, I guess.
Double approval. Right on. All right. So get out there and have some fun, everybody. Thank you for participating. Have yourselves a great rest of your day. I will be in and around the site through the day. So if you have any questions, feel free to give me a holler. New level tours. We'll have our first introductory class on Friday, so in 2 days. And new level 3ers will be sending out all the formal meet and greets probably over the weekend. All right, guys, have yourselves a great day. All the best, and bye for now.